Every single person you're chasing right now is running away from you, and you're too blind to see it. That friend who never calls you back, that romantic interest who keeps you on the back burner, that family member whose approval you desperately seek, they're all sending you the same message, but you refuse to listen. When you chase people, you don't just look desperate, you become desperate. And desperation is the most repulsive energy in the universe. You've turned yourself into an emotional vampire, sucking the life out of every relationship you touch because you need instead of giving, building and creating value. The harsh truth that nobody wants to tell you is this: the reason people avoid you isn't because you're not good enough, it's because your neediness is suffocating them. You've become the person others see calling and think, not today. The person whose texts get read but not answered. The person whose invitations get politely declined with fake excuses. There was once a magnificent eagle born in the mountains who fell from his nest as a small chick. A farmer found this tiny creature and, not knowing what else to do, placed him in the chicken coop. Day after day, this eagle grew up among chickens. He learned to peck at the ground for scraps. He learned to cluck and flutter his wings uselessly, never rising more than a few feet off the ground. He believed he was a chicken because that's all he had ever known. Years passed, and this eagle lived a chicken's life, completely unaware of his true nature, until one day, another eagle soared overhead and saw him scratching in the dirt. This wise eagle landed and said, "What are you doing down there? You are an eagle. You were born to soar above the clouds, to command the skies, not to scratch for scraps among chickens." But the ground-bound eagle protested, No, you don't understand. I am a chicken. Look at me. I live with chickens. I eat like chickens. I can barely fly. I belong here." The wise eagle would not accept this lie. He grabbed the confused eagle and carried him to the edge of a high cliff. "Look at your reflection in this water," he commanded. "See your hooked beak, your powerful talons, your broad wings. You are not a chicken. You never were a chicken. You are an eagle. And it's time you remembered who you are." And with that truth burning in his heart, the eagle spread his wings wide and soared into the sky for the first time, claiming his rightful place among the clouds. My friend, you are that eagle. But somewhere along the way, you started believing you were a chicken. You started chasing people for their approval, their attention, their validation. You started begging for scraps of affection when you were born to command respect. You started living beneath your potential because you forgot your true identity. The most dangerous addiction in the world is not to drugs or alcohol, it's the addiction to other people's approval. When you become addicted to validation, you hand over the remote control of your emotions to everyone else. You wake up in the morning and your mood depends on whether someone liked your photo, returned your call, or smiled at you. You go to bed at night feeling empty because you spent the entire day chasing people who don't even understand your worth. Listen carefully to what I'm about to tell you. When you chase people, you create what I call a poverty mindset in relationships. You start operating from a position of lack instead of abundance. You start believing that love, friendship, and respect are scarce resources that you must beg for. But here's the truth that will set you free. There is no shortage of people who will value you when you value yourself. Have you ever noticed what happens when you chase someone? They run faster. When you call them too much, they stop answering. When you text them constantly, they become distant. When you make yourself too available, they take you for granted. This is not cruelty, this is human nature. People are naturally drawn to what is valuable and rare, and they naturally avoid what seems desperate and needy. The principle is simple but profound. What you chase runs away from you, and what you don't chase often comes running toward you. This is not a game or manipulation. This is understanding the fundamental laws that govern human behavior and relationships. Think about the most attractive people you know. Not physically attractive, but magnetically attractive. What makes them so compelling? Is it that they chase everyone for attention? Is it that they beg for people to like them? Absolutely not. What makes them attractive is their self-possession, their confidence, their ability to be complete within themselves. They don't need your approval to feel good about themselves. And that independence is what draws people to them. Your self-worth cannot be determined by other people's opinions, because other people's opinions change like the weather. The person who praises you today might criticize you tomorrow. The friend who seems loyal today might betray you next week. If your sense of value depends on their acceptance, you will live on an emotional roller coaster, going up and down based on other people's moods and preferences. But when your worth comes from within, when you understand your own value, when you know who you are, regardless of what others think, you become unshakable. You become magnetic. You become the kind of person others want to be around, because you're not draining their energy with your neediness right now. Some of you are chasing friends who don't return your calls. You're pursuing romantic interests who don't appreciate your efforts. You're seeking approval from family members who will never give it. You're exhausting yourself trying to prove your worth to people who have already decided not to see it. Stop, just stop. The mirror doesn't lie. When you look in the mirror, you see someone worthy of love, respect, and success. You see someone with unique gifts, talents, and potential. You see someone who doesn't need to beg for a place at anyone's table. Your value is not up for negotiation. Your worth is not dependent on anyone else's recognition. You are valuable because you exist, because you have something unique to offer this world, because you were created with purpose and potential that no one else can fulfill. The moment you stop chasing people and start focusing on yourself, everything changes. The moment you stop looking for external validation and start building internal confidence, you become a completely different person. You become the eagle you were always meant to be, soaring above the chickens who never understood your true nature. It's time to remember who you are. It's time to stop scratching in the dirt for scraps of attention and start soaring toward your destiny. The sky is calling, and you were born to answer. Now that you understand your true worth, let me tell you about Maria. She was a brilliant architect with a mind that could design buildings that seemed to touch the sky. But Maria had a problem. She spent her days going from one construction company to another, portfolio in hand, practically begging for opportunities. She would sit in waiting rooms for hours, hoping someone would give her a chance. She would call project managers repeatedly, asking if they had any work for her. She would even offer to work for free just to prove herself. And what happened? The more she chased, the more they avoided her, the more desperate she became, the less valuable she appeared. Construction companies began to see her as needy, pushy, someone who probably wasn't good enough if she had to beg for work. Maria was trapped in a cycle that was destroying her confidence and her career. One day, frustrated and exhausted, Maria made a decision that changed everything. She stopped chasing. She stopped calling. She stopped begging. Instead, she went home, locked herself in her home office, and decided to focus on becoming the best architect she could possibly be. She studied new design techniques. She learned advanced software. She created stunning conceptual buildings just for the joy of creation. She started a small blog where she shared her architectural insights and innovative ideas. Months passed. Maria wasn't chasing anyone anymore. She was building. She was growing. She was becoming. And then something magical happened. The same construction companies that had avoided her calls started calling her. They had seen her work online. They had heard about her innovative designs. They had witnessed her expertise, and now they wanted it. But here's the beautiful part of the story. When they called, Maria was no longer desperate. She had options. She had developed her skills to the point where she could choose her projects. The companies that once ignored her were now competing for her services. She had transformed from someone who chased opportunities to someone who attracted them. This is what I call the magnet principle. You attract what you are, not what you want. If you are needy, you attract people who take advantage of need. If you are desperate, you attract people who thrive on desperation. But if you are confident, skilled, and complete within yourself, you attract people who value confidence, skill, and completeness. The difference between being needy and being needed is everything. When you are needy, you drain energy from others. You take more than you give. You require constant reassurance, attention, and validation. People feel exhausted after spending time with you because you're always seeking something from them. But when you are needed, you add value to others. You bring skills, wisdom, joy, and solutions to the table. People feel energized after spending time with you because you contribute to their lives. You become someone people want to be around, not someone they feel obligated to tolerate. Desperation has a smell. It's an energy that people can sense from across the room. When you walk into a room desperate for approval, people can feel it. When you start a conversation fishing for compliments, people know it. When you post on social media seeking validation, people recognize it. And that desperation repels the very people you're trying to attract. Confidence, on the other hand, is magnetic. When you walk into a room knowing your worth, people are drawn to you. When you speak with certainty about your abilities, people listen. When you share your knowledge without seeking approval, people respect you. Confidence attracts opportunity, relationships, and success. But here's what most people don't understand about confidence. Real confidence isn't about pretending to be something you're not. It's about becoming something you're proud to be. It's about building your skills, expanding your knowledge, and developing your character until you genuinely have reasons to be confident. You cannot fake this kind of magnetism. You cannot pretend your way into becoming attractive to others. You must actually become the person you want to attract. If you want to attract successful people, you must become successful. If you want to attract loyal friends, you must become loyal. If you want to attract love, you must become loving. This is the law of reciprocity in relationships. What you put out into the world comes back to you. If you put out desperation, you get desperation in return. If you put out neediness, you attract people who need you for the wrong reasons. But if you put out confidence, competence, and completeness, your personal brand is not what you say about yourself. It's what others experience when they interact with you. Are you known as someone who always needs something, or someone who always brings something? Are you known as someone who drains energy, or someone who adds energy? Are you known as someone who chases opportunities, or someone who creates them? Starting today, stop chasing and start building. Stop seeking and start becoming. Stop looking for people to complete you and start completing yourself. When you focus on becoming the best version of yourself, the right people will be naturally drawn to your light. Let me tell you about two farmers who lived side by side in the same valley. Both had inherited equal plots of land from their fathers. Both had access to the same water source, the same sunshine, the same fertile soil, but their approaches to farming were as different as night and day. The first farmer, let's call him Thomas, spent most of his time looking over the fence at his neighbor's crops. Every morning, instead of tending to his own field, Thomas would walk the property line, studying what his neighbor was planting, criticizing his techniques, and complaining about his success. Look at those tomatoes, Thomas would mutter. Mine should be that big. It's not fair that his corn is taller than mine. He must be using some secret I don't know about. Thomas became obsessed with his neighbor's harvest. He spent hours speculating about what fertilizers were being used, what seeds were being planted, what methods were being employed. He gossiped with other farmers about his neighbor's success, always looking for reasons why someone else was doing better than him. Meanwhile, his own field suffered from neglect. The second farmer, Jacob, took a completely different approach every morning before dawn. Jacob was in his field, testing his soil, planning his planting schedule, and studying agricultural techniques. He invested in better seeds, learned about crop rotation, and experimented with natural fertilizers. While Thomas was gossiping and complaining, Jacob was working and learning. Jacob spent his time reading farming journals, attending agricultural workshops, and speaking with experts about soil improvement. He created systems for watering, developed schedules for planting, and kept detailed records of what worked and what didn't, season after season. Jacob's harvest grew more abundant, while Thomas's remained mediocre. After 5 years, something remarkable happened. Agricultural experts from across the region began visiting Jacob's farm to study his methods. His techniques were being taught in farming schools. His crops were winning awards at harvest festivals. Jacob had become the neighbor that others looked over the fence to study. Your life is your garden, and the question you must ask yourself is this: what are you planting? Are you planting seeds of skill, knowledge, and character? Or are you planting seeds of jealousy, complaint, and comparison? Because whatever you plant in the garden of your life, that's exactly what you're going to harvest. When you focus on other people's success instead of building your own, you breed jealousy and stagnation in your heart. Jealousy is like a weed that chokes out every good thing trying to grow in your life. When you spend your mental energy wondering why others are succeeding while you're struggling, you rob yourself of the focus needed to create your own success. Your problems are your responsibilities, not other people's. Your growth is your responsibility, not other people's. Your happiness is your responsibility, not other people's. The moment you accept full responsibility for the condition of your life's garden, that's the moment you gain the power to change it. Success leaves clues, but those clues are found in principles and practices, not in complaints and comparisons. Instead of resenting others' achievements, study them. Instead of criticizing their methods, learn from them. Instead of feeling threatened by their progress, let it inspire your own. The soil of your life can produce anything you choose to plant in it. But you must tend to it daily. You must pull the weeds of negative thinking. You must water it with positive action. You must fertilize it with new knowledge and skills. You must protect it from the pests of discouragement and doubt. When you focus on cultivating your inner world, when you make personal development your daily practice, when you commit to becoming better today than you were yesterday, you create an unstoppable force for positive change in your life. Your garden is waiting. The question is, what will you plant today? In the mountains of ancient times, there lived a blacksmith named Marcus who worked alone in his forge, while other craftsmen gathered in the town square to gossip, complain about their customers, and compete for attention. Marcus remained in his workshop, hammer in hand, fire blazing, perfecting his craft in solitude. The townspeople thought Marcus was strange. Why doesn't he join us, they whispered. Why doesn't he come to the tavern and share stories? Why doesn't he seek our company? They assumed he was lonely, perhaps even antisocial. But Marcus was not lonely. He was preparing. Day after day, month after month, year after year, Marcus hammered away in his forge. He studied the properties of different metals. He experimented with temperatures and techniques. He crafted sword after sword, each one better than the last. While others talked about their work, Marcus was actually working. While others complained about difficult customers, Marcus was solving problems that no other blacksmith had ever solved. The sound of his hammer became the rhythm of his growth. The heat of his forge became the fire of his ambition. The solitude of his workshop became the sanctuary of his development. Marcus understood something that the gossiping craftsman didn't. Greatness is forged in private, long before it's displayed in public. 10 years passed. Then something extraordinary happened. A messenger arrived in town carrying news that the king himself had heard of a legendary blacksmith whose swords were said to be unbreakable, whose craftsmanship was unmatched in all the land. The king wanted to commission a sword from this master craftsman. The townspeople were shocked when the messenger knocked on Marcus's door. The man they had considered strange and antisocial was actually the legendary blacksmith the entire kingdom was talking about. Kings from distant lands began making pilgrimages to his simple forge. Nobles competed for his services. Marcus had become irreplaceable not through networking or socializing, but through mastery achieved in solitude. This is the power of solitude that most people never understand. Solitude is not loneliness. Loneliness is the pain of being alone. Solitude is the glory of being alone. Loneliness is empty. Solitude is full. Loneliness weakens you when you're alone with yourself. You meet the most important person in your life. You discover your thoughts without other people's opinions contaminating them. You hear your own voice without the noise of everyone else's expectations drowning it out. You find your own rhythm without trying to match someone else's pace. Most people are afraid of solitude because they're afraid of what they might discover about themselves. They stay busy with social activities, constantly surround themselves with people, and fill every quiet moment with noise because silence forces them to confront their own thoughts, dreams, and fears. But the strongest people in the world are comfortable with their own company. They don't need constant entertainment or validation from others. They can sit quietly with their thoughts, make plans without consulting everyone they know, and find peace in their own presence. Time alone is not wasted time. It's preparation time. It's thinking time. It's planning time. It's growth time. It's the time when you build the internal strength that will carry you through every external challenge you'll face. In solitude, you develop the unshakable foundation that no storm can destroy. You build the confidence that comes from knowing yourself deeply. You create the clarity that comes from thinking your own thoughts. You develop the wisdom that comes from reflecting on your own experiences. When you're comfortable being alone, you stop settling for relationships that don't serve you. When you enjoy your own company, you stop begging others for theirs. When you find peace in solitude, you bring that peace into every interaction you have with others. The world is full of noise, but your greatest insights will come in the quiet moments when you're alone with your thoughts, your dreams, and your determination to become everything you were created to be. Robert was a musician with a dream that burned in his heart like fire. He could feel melodies flowing through his veins, hear harmonies that others couldn't imagine, and create sounds that moved people to tears. But Robert had fallen into the same trap that destroys so many talented people. He was chasing instead of building. Every week, Robert would dress up in his best clothes, grab his demo CD, and make the rounds to every record label in the city. He would sit in sterile waiting rooms for hours, hoping some executive would give him 5 minutes of their time. When they did listen, they would nod politely, make vague promises, and send him away with the standard line, "We'll call you." Robert spent his evenings at open mic nights, not because he loved performing, but because he was desperately hoping some talent scout would be in the audience. He posted constantly on social media, begging people to share his music. He sent countless emails to radio stations, music blogs, and anyone who might help him get noticed. He was exhausting himself in pursuit of people who didn't even know his name. The rejections piled up like autumn leaves. Your sound isn't what we're looking for right now. The market is too saturated. You need more experience. Each rejection felt like a knife to his dreams. Robert began to doubt his talent, his purpose, his entire identity as a musician. But one particularly devastating day, after being rejected by the 7th record label that month, Robert sat in his car and made a decision that would change his life forever. He was done chasing. He was done begging. He was done allowing other people to determine his worth as an artist. Robert went home, unplugged his phone, deactivated his social media accounts, and did something radical. He disappeared. Not from music, but from the desperate pursuit of validation. He locked himself in his home studio and began the most important work of his life, becoming the musician he was meant to be for the first time in years. Robert wasn't creating music to impress record executives. He wasn't writing songs to fit some imaginary market demand. He was creating purely for the love of creation. He experimented with sounds he had never tried before. He wrote lyrics that came from the deepest parts of his soul. He learned new instruments, studied music theory, and pushed himself beyond every boundary he had previously accepted. Months passed while other musicians were still making the rounds, begging for opportunities. Robert was in his studio, crafting something extraordinary. He wasn't posting on social media because he had nothing to prove to anyone. He wasn't networking because he was too busy working. He wasn't talking about his dreams because he was too busy living them. But Robert wasn't completely isolated. He had discovered something powerful. When you stopped chasing everyone, you start attracting the right people. He began building a small but passionate community of music lovers who found his work online. These weren't industry professionals or influential contacts. They were real people who genuinely connected with his music. Robert started releasing his music independently, not because he couldn't get a record deal, but because he no longer needed one. His small but devoted following began to grow organically. People shared his music because it moved them, not because he begged them to. His songs started appearing in independent films. Small venues began reaching out to book him, and music blogs began writing about his unique sound. 2 years after his disappearance from the music scene's social circus, something remarkable happened. The same record labels that had rejected him were now calling his phone. But these weren't polite courtesy calls. These were serious offers from executives who had been hearing his name everywhere. Radio stations were requesting his music. Venues were bidding against each other for his performances. But here's the most beautiful part of Robert's story. When these opportunities came, he was no longer the desperate musician who would accept anything. He had become selective, confident, and clear about his value. He could negotiate from a position of strength because he had built something real, something that people genuinely wanted. The record executives who once dismissed him were now competing for his attention. They were offering contracts that were better than anything he could have imagined during his chasing days. But more importantly, Robert was no longer defining his success by their approval. He had learned to create his own opportunities, build his own audience, and determine his own worth. This is what happens when you stop chasing and start building. This is the harvest season that comes to everyone who plants the right seeds in their life. When you focus on becoming excellent at what you do, excellence attracts opportunity. When you focus on serving people genuinely, genuine relationships develop. When you focus on building something of value, valuable opportunities present themselves. The compound effect of consistent self-improvement is like interest in a bank account. It starts slowly, almost imperceptibly, but over time it accelerates until the growth becomes exponential. Every skill you develop, every book you read, every habit you build, every moment you spend becoming better adds to your personal compound interest. Quality relationships come when you stop desperately seeking quantity relationships. When you're not chasing everyone, you have time and energy to invest deeply in the people who truly matter. When you're not scattered across 100 superficial connections, you can build meaningful bonds with people who genuinely value what you bring to their lives. Confidence and competence create a magnetic effect that draws the right opportunities and people into your orbit. But this magnetism isn't manufactured or faked. It's the natural result of becoming someone worth knowing, someone worth hiring, someone worth partnering. Your responsibility is not to chase what you want. Your responsibility is to become the person who naturally attracts what you want. If you want respect, become respectable. If you want love, become loving. If you want success, become successful. If you want loyalty, become loyal right now. Wherever you are in your life, you have a choice. You can continue chasing people who don't appreciate your worth, begging for opportunities that may never come, and exhausting yourself in pursuit of external validation. Or you can make the same decision that Robert made, that Maria made, that Jacob the farmer made. You can stop the chase and start the build. Your harvest season is coming, but only if you plant the right seeds today. Stop looking over the fence at other people's crops and start tending to your own garden. Stop chasing people and start attracting them. Stop seeking validation and start building something worth validating. The world is waiting for what you have to offer, but only when you stop chasing it long enough to develop it. Your time is now. Your season is here. Stop chasing people and start building the life you were meant to live.